What was your biggest oh hell no moment where you saw a situation as very creepy or scary? Hard to top the stories from people who've been in the armed forces, but here it goes. I went to the university in a not so nice area of my city. My senior year I lived off campus by a few blocks close to the edge of what most students considered the safe zone. So one night I'm walking to the other end of campus to grab drinks with friends, and when I reach the end of my block, a guy riding a bike with one hand, drinking a Four Loko, comes riding by saying get off the block, someone's about to get shot. I said thanks and booked it about 30 seconds before the shooting started. Didn't stop till I was on the other side of campus. Too long. Didn't read. If a guy tells you someone's gonna get shot, start running. Edit. Yes, it was Temple U. There was this guy called the Butcher on my street growing up. They called him that cause he was a butcher. Family had at least a screw loose though. I was semi-friends with his oldest kid. On Halloween I go up to his house. I was like 11 or 12. They had these large spear looking things up on each post of their little wood fence that ran up the side of the driveway. On the top of each was what looked like pig and cow heads, with blood dripping down the spikes. I got up there, said, "Hey man, those things look so real," to the son. And he responded, "They are. Wanna come in the garage and I'll show you all the other cool dead stuff we got?" I never trick or treated there again. I'm glad it was the kid who said it though. If the big creepy dad had, I probably could have cried or shit myself right there. I was driving down a 2-lane when the car in front of me approaching the light swerved a bit into the opposite lane. I look and quickly discover 3 brown bags in the middle of my lane. Unavoidable when you are quickly approaching or if the car in front of you quickly swerves. As my car goes over the bags, I immediately discover they are actually giant cinder blocks from the sounds of it against my car. My first assumption was that some high school kids were being dumb and placed them there. Being a concerned citizen and not giving it a second thought, I pulled a U-turn into the opposite lane to go throw the blocks to the side so someone didn't get hurt. As I do that, a man in all black covering his entire body and face comes out of nowhere, walks across the lane and stares into my soul. Not sure what his intentions were, but obviously not great. I was so caught off guard. My window was down and we locked eye contact for a solid 20 seconds as I slowly drove away. I proceeded to keep driving and called the cops. I looped back around after I saw cop car and another car that actually was broken down on the side of the road. Clearly the guy was trying to trap people. I'll never know what his intentions were, but it was creepy AF. Lesson learned. My mom has a terrifying story. Every night as a kid it looked like the silhouette of a head was looking in her bedroom window. It happened every night, so she decided it must be a trick of the eye. It would usually just creep her out. One night she was just watching this head-shaped thing, and grew tired of not knowing what it was. So as quickly as she could, she jumped up to run across the room to turn on the light. A second before she reached the lights, the silhouette moved and ran away, and it never happened again. Edit. To make it more terrifying, it was probably her creepy stepdad. So scary. When I was little, some nights would be absolutely full of gentle yet incredibly freaky screeching on the window. I was terrified for years of sleeping because of it and similar irrational things. One day I finally connected that the flowers on the tree outside probably were sticky, and when the branches got long enough to touch the window, all it needed was some wind to wipe them all over the top of the window. Really eased my mind when I put that together. I grew up in eastern Washington, which is full of scrub desert, which means you have to deal with rattlesnakes. I was 8 or so, and at my grandparents', and everyone went down to the lake to swim. For some reason, I stayed behind for a while, and decided I would join them later. So I'm walking down this dirt road, and I hear a rattle in front of me. I'm like, is it worth it to risk walking by a rattlesnake? I decided nope and start walking back up the road. 10 feet later, I hear a rattle in front of me again. So, here I am, young kid, rattlesnakes in front and behind. I walked back and forth a few times hoping that this time there wouldn't be a rattle, but there always was. I'm freaking out, nearly crying. I shout a few times but no one's near enough to help me, and I'm just boxed in between these 2 rattles. Eventually, I pump myself up and just book it back up the road to my grandparents, and spend the rest of the day shaking and playing solitaire. Here's the thing. It was probably just bugs. There are bugs that make the same damn sound as rattlesnakes to scare off predators, and they are way more common than actual rattlers. I even knew that at the time, and kept telling myself that, but when you're 8 and alone and in hidden murder animal territory, logic is a cold comfort. The time I lifted a burlap sack with the tip of my rifle and found an IED underneath, we had apparently interrupted the emplacement, so it didn't go off. The boys in the truck said they didn't know white guys could jump that high. Edit. Well, my highest rated comment is about the time I was an idiot in a war zone. Lol. Repeat after me. When in an area with an active insurgency, if you see something on the ground that you didn't put there, don't touch it. Stay safe out there, kids. I was working the front gate at Camp Bastion and we frisked one fellow to discover he was wearing what appeared to be a suicide vest. We put him at gunpoint to discover it was only a weighted vest for fitness. Needless to say, it was frightening. Back in college I dated this real pretty girl from a bad neighborhood. I played sports, wrestled, and boxed, so I knew a thing or two about self-defense. I would pick her up once or twice a week. During the day I never had any problems, but at night, people, gangbangers, were always hanging around. One time I picked her up at about 8 PM. The sun was setting. While I was waiting for her, I decided to wipe down the outside of my new car. While I was wiping it down, 2 young guys, good looking but with baggy clothes, came up and started asking friendly questions, including why I was there. I told them I was waiting. They asked me to take them to the liquor store while I was waiting. I politely declined, but they became more persistent to the point of demanding. I remained polite and told them I had to go because my girl was ready. They both kind of laughed, then looked at each other. One finally said, "I don't think you understand, we are no longer asking. Let us borrow your car," and he blocked the driver door. I decided it was either give up my car and be left in a really crappy situation or man up and get the kicked out of me. I grabbed the guy leaning against the door and flipped him into the other guy. It gave me enough time to jump into my car and go. I drove straight home. At that time my pager was going off, and when I got home I called my girl and she proceeded to cuss me out about how I hurt her cousin and he was just playing around. Needless to say, that was the last time I spoke with her. I still don't know if he was playing or not, but who the plays like that? I also grew up in a rough neighborhood. Once in 6th grade I went to a girl's house after school to get her and hang out with some other kids. Her older brother answered the door and put a, probably BB, gun to my chest and asked why I was asking about his little sister. I vividly remember saying wrong number and booked it across the street to my friend's house. The next time my boss asks me to do something, I'm going to say wrong number and run away. My family used to rent this guest house owned by an old man in his 60s or so, and he lived right next to us. I was 13 and masturbated late one night in my room, curtains slightly open, which I honestly didn't think about at the time. And the very next morning he was staring at me smiling and said, "You stay up late, don't you?" in a suggestive tone. Maybe it was nothing, but I'm pretty sure he was peeping on me. Plus, my dad got us to move out really quickly, and his reasoning was that he was worried about being around above. Someone was giving away a free mini fridge on Craigslist. I drove there. It was deep in heavy woods, no one else around. I was already nervous, but I pulled up and saw a hand close the curtains, and there was a sign that said "Go around back" with an arrow. I noped the f out, don't need a used mini fridge that bad. I was on a road trip with my dad, a friend of my dad's who we'll call Dick, and my twin brother. We stayed with a family friend, who I'll call K, for a couple nights. Dick's a funny guy with good stories, so twin bro and I were talking to him the whole time we were driving to K's house. When we got there, Dad and K went downstairs to the den to watch TV. Twin bro used the restroom, and that left Dick and I alone in the hallway together. Dick slammed me against the wall, pinned me by my shoulder, touched my face, kissed me, and started grinding on me. He said he knew there was chemistry between us and he could tell that I wanted him. Oh. Hell. No. I was a 17-year-old girl. He was my dad's age. I just wanted to not be bored during a road trip. I spent the rest of the time clinging to twin bro. I didn't tell anyone until about 15 years later. I didn't want to cause trouble. I thought maybe I was being too forward, and maybe I deserved it. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking the video and subscribe if you want more Ask Reddit.